Number figured out, a motive born in drought and brevity. And if I'm not the soul of your design, I blatantly decline your remedy. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine. Wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie. And I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, if I lose the fight, I still rage against the night. Don't box I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine. Simple, dear, I'll still be here when you're gone. You gather souvenirs, but I will never be your pawn, your pawn, your pawn. My love was in
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. Welcome everybody, and hopefully, well, we'll see how things go today. Welcome, welcome. Heat, how's it going? Welcome. Derry Bennett, welcome. House bans the bill on trans boys and trans girls' rights, and the Senate and Trump and Australia will do the same thing. Yep, Billy Ray Cyrus come into play at the inauguration Monday. Man, they really dragged out all the has-beens, huh? That's wild. Welcome, welcome, folks. Hopefully, yeah, wake me up with when Miley shows up. Oh man. It looks like there is a tentative potential ceasefire deal being worked on at this time. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how close we are to a complete and permanent a complete and permanent ceasefire. How close we are to that. Personally, I don't trust Netanyahu as far as I can throw him. So I'm not I'm not confident as to how, assuming that everything goes as planned. I'm not sure how long that is going to last. Because the Israeli government, oftentimes will say that they are in favor of a ceasefire, but then put some ridiculous stipulations, and it just never ends up happening. I'm not sure. Currently, this is what we know. Yeah, sus timing, but okay. Yeah, I mean, it could be a situation where Netanyahu is basically giving Trump attempting to give Trump, even though he's not in office, the win here as a political favor, so to speak. As a political favor, so to speak. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to end up playing out. How's it going? I'm hanging in there. Hopefully, so does the stream. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is what we know so far. Mediators have touted Gaza's ceasefire deal and plan to free hostages and as well as Palestinian prisoners as well. The three, according to the AP, the three-phase ceasefire deal promises the release of the hostages held by militants in Gaza and the hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in Israel, and it will allow hundreds of thousands of people displaced in Gaza to return what remains of their homes. It also will flood desperately needed humanitarian aid. On paper, on paper sounds like something that should have happened a long time ago. But if that's true, and if there is a moment where humanitarian aid can reach the people of Gaza, then I'll say that is a good thing. Looks and sounds good to me. Okay. All right. I'm not even gonna jinx it. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna speak on anything stream related. Okay. We will just soldier on. Okay. The Prime Minister of Qatar, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, said that the ceasefire would go into effect this Sunday, and that its success would depend on Israel and Hamas acting in good faith in order for this agreement to not collapse. President Biden has touted this deal from Washington, saying the ceasefire will stay in place as long as Israel and Hamas remain at the negotiating table over the long-term truce. Biden credited months of dogged and painstaking, quote, American diplomacy for landing the deal, while noting his administration and President-elect Trump have been speaking as one. So again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. In any case, I will switch over to the display tab. Yeah, I think this is easier to control. This is easier to control here. You know? We'll see. We just did another Windows update earlier, and I was hoping that maybe if it had something to do with Windows, then maybe that could fix it, but apparently not. Oh well. It is what it is. In any case, we can go from here because I can just do it. Folks, if you want to support the channel, there are many different ways of doing so. Please consider liking the stream on YouTube. I see you guys. Thank you. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the merch store, folks. Check it out. And Substack as well. Do you have any articles in the works? Yeah, I gotta start picking that back up. I'm gonna do my best to get one out this week, but we'll see. I'm gonna do my best to try to finish one this week. This weekend. We'll see how that goes. Join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. Lots of cool stuff that happens there. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna really try.
Who work on the strip within 2.5 miles of the Bellagio, largely people of color. Of those, the majority are Latino, and they are clearly, at least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders.
NBC News projects Bernie Sanders is the winner in Nevada. Bernie Sanders built a turnout machine in this state, powered by young voters and Latino voters.
The happiest person right now, it's about 1:15 Moscow time. This thing is going very well for Vladimir Putin, I promise you. All the Sanders people were taking pictures wishing Jeremy Corbyn the best.
Oh, and they were mistaken. They were very mistaken, yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to go down that path.
Okay, all I've got for you, James, is Claire.
Hey.
I just love you.
Look, James, in all due respect.
Was that an audible sigh?
Is a political hack. We are taking on the establishment. This is no secret to anybody. We're taking on the wall. I guess the former head of Goldman Sachs attacked me yesterday.
Yeah, he had
We're
some
taking on
things
Wall
as well.
Street. He did, yeah, Wall Street. And the insurance companies don't like me. And you know what? The pharmaceutical industry, which is charging us 10 times more for the same drugs they sell in Canada, they don't like me either. Nor does the fossil fuel industry, because their product happens to be destroying our planet. Nor does the military industrial complex or the prison industrial complex. We are taking on Trump, the Republican establishment, Carville, and the Democratic establishment. But at the end of the day, the grassroots movement that we are putting together of young people, of working people of color, want real change.
Yeah, and I think that this speaks to to the things that we've been talking about not just offering an alternative to Trump. It's not just offering an alternative to the Republicans, which that shouldn't be difficult, man. I don't know why that needs to be said, but offering an alternative to Trump isn't enough. You also have to offer an alternative to the status quo, and that currently people are not happy with. People are disillusioned with the status quo. So if all you are offering is the very same thing that people are angry about, then they're going to stay home. It's really that simple. Carville, now I'm sighing. Yeah, guy's insufferable. It really.
Was this an economy election? And if so, is Sanders right that on populist, working class, kitchen table issues, the Dems didn't do enough?
I think Senator Sanders has some of a point here. And that is, there were things we could have run on harder that have effect.
As you saw, one of Bernie Sanders' biggest naysayers was forced to admit that he was absolutely right. even though it seemed like it literally caused him physical pain to do so. But James Carville is not alone, because Democratic Senator Chris Murphy also recently conceded that Bernie Sanders' populist policies was the Democratic Party's ticket to victory. But here's my favorite. So in February of 2020, David Brooks wrote an article for the New York Times titled, "No, not Sanders, not ever." But in the aftermath of Trump's victory in 2024, he changed his tune, writing, "Maybe Bernie Sanders was right." Yeah.
Like, that's, that doesn't do us any good, man. This is the kind of stuff that's, like, super freaking infuriating. Because, like, that does me no good. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? You screwed us over, man. It's done. Like, thanks, dude, but, like, it's over.
Everyone's admitting that Bernie Sanders was right now that it's too late. Trump's inauguration is just days away, but we'd now be in an entirely different timeline if everyone just listened to Bernie Sanders in the first place. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because Nolan Hidgen wrote an article published in Salon this week titled "Why the Legacy Media Suddenly Sound a Lot Like Bernie Sanders," and adds, "Bernie Sanders was right." And in response to the virality of that article, Bernie Sanders responded, writing on Twitter, "Yes, we were right then. We are also right now. The focus has got to be on bringing the working class of this country together to defeat oligarchy."
Yep.
Notice how he didn't say I was right. He said we were right. But if anybody deserves to do a victory lap, it's that man. But reading this article actually made me emotional, because Nolan revisits the 2016 and 2020 Democratic Party primaries and explains in painstaking detail how the Democratic Party establishment tried to undermine Bernie Sanders' movement at every step of the way, and in doing so, put us on this dark path that we're on right now. And them knowing that they're wrong obviously isn't going to change things now, nor will it get them to rethink their strategy going forward. But it's important to talk about this so regular people understand how our leaders deprived us of a better future that we could have had.
Have you heard about Ryoko Pro? This is
Nope.
the cutting-edge portable Wi-Fi hotspot that people wish they found out about sooner. With this
So let's go back to 20.
Anyways, CC Bean, if you could choose anyone to be in office to become president, who would it be? I would say Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner. These are excellent choices. Excellent choices. Honestly, I mean, Nina Turner is great. Is it Rashida Tlaib? If you want like a more younger, progressive candidate, I would probably say, AOC. I mean, there's a handful of people. There's a handful of people that I would be fine with being president. Monster Floof, thank you for the follow. What's up? Welcome. Nina Turner is cool, I agree.
2016 and 2020, specifically the Democratic Party primaries, where the party establishment responded to the rise of Bernie Sanders' movement by doing everything in their power to crush that movement. Nolan writes, in 2016, the Democratic National Committee actively suppressed Sanders' campaign, something they have since admitted by giving Hillary Clinton advance notice of debate questions, fabricating stories about Sanders supporters throwing chairs, and counting delegates' votes before they had been...
Yeah, and like ridiculous stories about like Bernie Sanders being like a massive misogynist or whatever. I mean, like there was a lot of dirty tactics, okay, being thrown specifically in the 2016 election. I mean, like honestly, like the 2020 primary also. Jon Stewart is a good one. It was narrowed down to who's in office now, but I expanded it. Jon Stewart. Yeah, it could literally be. It could literally be anyone. Anyone in office. Yeah, I mean, like honestly, Jon Stewart would also be a fantastic candidate. Like, I would not mind President Stewart. Okay, I would not say no to that.
Cast to make Hillary Clinton's lead over Sanders appear larger than it was. The legacy media amplified these tactics by claiming Clinton was more electable than Sanders, despite evidence to the contrary, and incorrectly asserting that his supporters were all white men with the pejorative label Bernie Bros. Similarly, studies documented the Bernie blackout, where Sanders received 23 times less coverage than Donald Trump and significantly less than Clinton during the 2015-2016 campaign. In 2020, the media onslaught continued, with Sanders receiving the most negative coverage of any candidate, accused of being unelectable despite evidence to the contrary, having his polling misrepresented or completely invisibilized in legacy media reporting, being smeared as a Russian stooge despite flimsy evidence, style of politics compared to communist executions by MSNBC's Chris Matthews, and receiving attacks based on unsupported claims, such as CNN siding with Democratic primary rival Elizabeth Warren in a he said, she said debate with Sanders. Now, with regard to that kerfuffle between him and Elizabeth Warren back in 2020, obviously none of us know what was said behind closed doors between the two of them, but Elizabeth Warren basically accused Bernie Sanders of saying that he didn't believe a woman could win. But we all...
Which is wild. Kerfuffle, I love that word. Me too. Maybe a Michelle or a Pete, I'm thinking. Nah, I don't know about that. Too close to like the status quo. Oh, that was ugly. It was, and it was unnecessary too. I don't know like who I don't know who directed Warren to even bring that up. It just made no sense because there was no freaking basis in that. Everybody knew that that was like fundamentally not true. That would be fundamentally just like untrue. That could be provably untrue. So I don't know like who advised Elizabeth Warren to even bring that up because it makes no sense. And not only did it make her look bad, it's just like, this is bigger than you, man. This is bigger than you. And yeah, it is kind of, I don't know, like, what percentage or how much blame, or how much blame we should assign, but like, partially, it is her fault, and people like that who propagated that. But in any case, dirty. Y'all would crucify me for my actual answer. We took that answer pretty well. I guarantee you'd hate my answer with a passion. Maybe so.
Know that is...
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Not true, because back in 2015, Bernie Sanders only ran for president because Elizabeth Warren refused to do so. He was trying to encourage her, as was the grassroots, to challenge Hillary Clinton, but she did not want to challenge Clinton, so Sanders stepped in. So why would Bernie Sanders say something like that if he encouraged a woman to run in the first place? Nonetheless, you know, the legacy media and Democratic Party elites...
There's literally video evidence of him, there's literally video evidence of him saying that he absolutely believes that a woman could be president. However, there's like, you know, barriers that are imposed by just the nature of society. But that doesn't mean that a woman can't be president. And I think that was very clear when he was speaking to those children. If you've seen the clip, I mean, like, nobody would believe that Bernie Sanders doesn't believe that a woman can be president. It just makes no sense. It's just it would be so out of character for him.
Use that as an opportunity to insinuate that Bernie Sanders was sexist. Now, Nolan doesn't point this out in the article, but in 2020, Democratic elites also talked openly about the prospect of...
And just to be clear, like, so did the Clinton campaign try to pull that misogyny crap too, when it was completely unfounded. Yeah, only bad actors spout that crap. Right, with the purpose and intent of, you know, playing dirty during the primaries. Because, like, that's what it was about at the time.
literally stealing the nomination away from Bernie Sanders by changing the rules and pushing for a brokered convention if he only had a plurality of delegates. As this political headline put it, DNC members discussed rules change to stop Sanders at the convention. In other words, if he won, he could have still lost. And in retrospect, a lot of people now see that each time they undermine Bernie Sanders' campaigns in 2016 and 2020, they put another nail in their coffin each time and ultimately paved the way for Trump's victories by needlessly antagonizing their own base, which no party should ever do, but the Democratic Party did that multiple times. But the answer is, why? Why snuff out this organic grassroots movement that's emerging in your own party? Don't you want that to happen? I mean, that will make you more popular. Yeah. And Nolan explains in the article that it all comes down to corruption as well as fundamental differences between electoral strategies.
Right. And like also, but like it makes no sense because like it doesn't matter what your ideology to winning elections is. The point being is it is very, very simple. You need people to come out and vote for you. That's how that works, right? Like distilled to its purest form, you need people to come out and vote for you, okay? And ideally, you would pick a candidate that could say bring that turnout, right? Like that's it. That's the way it works. You need turnout, and you need a candidate that would build that turnout and have those people show up to vote. It doesn't matter like what you believe. Like fundamentally, that's the name of the game.
So Bernie Sanders saw the rise of fascism, arguably even before Donald Trump, and realized that people were susceptible to right-wing radicalization because their material conditions continued to deteriorate year after year after year. So the question is, how do you address that? Well, you address it by improving material conditions, obviously. You give people free healthcare, free education. You give them higher wages and create more economic opportunities for them. The antidote to fascism is left-wing populism, where you form a multiracial, multi-generational coalition of working-class people. And that right there is crucial because if you bring all working-class people together, you inhibit the right's ability to divide and conquer with their divisive white identity politics bullshit, right? Now, on the contrary, the Democratic Party subscribed to an idea called demographic destiny, meaning that their victories would eventually be automatic due to changing demographics. And it makes sense on paper since people of color and marginalized groups, they were growing in number and they disproportionately supported the Democratic Party.
Right. Because the Republican Party is just outright like bad. So by default, it would be more likely that a person of color or a minority demographic would vote for a Democrat. The problem is, after so many times of playing this game, at some point, people are just going to be like, okay, but what are you going to actually do? Right? Like, okay, Republicans bad, we got it. Fascism, got it. So what are you going to do? And unfortunately, the Democratic Party did not provide a adequate answer to that question. Wolfglen, welcome. Wait, are you saying you win elections by getting people to vote for you? Yeah, I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. That's how it works.
Naturally, seeing that the Republican Party was so fucking racist and bigoted. Now, the Democratic Party's prominence in theory would continue to increase as these demographics continue to grow. And I remember back in 2010, after Republicans won back the House and we were all sad, Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC smugly explained how Republicans may have won the battle, but they've lost the war because Texas, for example, is on the cusp of becoming blue because of the growing Hispanic population. And once that happens, it's over for Republicans. And I remember eating that shit up at the time thinking, man, he's right. Republican rule isn't long for this world. And I tried to find the clip of this. I couldn't find it. I watched it live on TV.
And that may be the case. It's just like, that may be the case that Republican rule is not long for this world. But like, how much damage is that going to incur before that happens, right? Because like fascism always tends to implode. That's how fascism ends, right? It always tends to implode, and The question is, how much damage is it going to do while it's here? So yeah, I understand that argument. Of course, eventually, like, eventually people, I imagine, eventually the fascism will implode on itself as it always has. It's just a matter of like how much suffering is that going to entail before that happens. Michael Hassler, welcome. I think y'all would have won if there was a primary. Maybe. Depending on who won that primary, it really was about providing an alternative to Trump and providing an alternative to the status quo that people are unhappy about. That's what it was about. I mean, it's possible that by having a proper primary, we might have had a different outcome. I'm not sure. It is quite possible, depending on who that candidate was.
So, it's out there in the ether, but, he assured us that demographic destiny was true. But there's a couple of problems with that theory in retrospect. First and foremost, it assumes that marginalized groups would remain loyal to the Democratic Party in perpetuity. Second, it meant that Democrats felt like they didn't really have to have an economic message and that their base would be satisfied with aesthetic progress. A black president, a woman president, a gay ambassador, or whatnot. And while this type of descriptive representation does matter, it's not an adequate substitute for economic politics. These advances aren't going to materially improve conditions for women and people of color and queer people. And the third problem with this theory is that Democrats ignored economic issues entirely that affect all of these groups. And worse, they pursued neoliberal policies that exacerbated the problems that these groups were already facing, and they argued against meaningful reforms by dividing people by identity. For example, Nolan writes, during both of those election cycles, the legacy media largely maintained that Sanders' appeal to the working class would alienate key constituencies, particularly people of color, women, the LGBTQIA community, for the Democratic Party because it was racist and sexist. This was summarized with Hillary Clinton's retort to Sanders' proposal to trust bust the big banks. Quote, if we broke up the big banks tomorrow, would that end racism? Would that end sexism? Would that end discrimination against the LGBT community? Would that make people feel more welcoming to immigrants overnight? In response, the crowd chanted no. And that right there was a real problem because the Democratic Party tried to disaggregate class politics with racial politics.
Yeah, I think it was really slimy that Kamala sat there and ranted on stage about how Biden was a bigoted racist and then ran with him as VP. If you had an actual primary, you would have had somebody with actual values. That's my opinion. I mean, maybe we had someone principled during the 2020 and 2016 primary. But I mean, who knows? I'm sorry. I just don't. I'm just not as confident in the. I'm just not as confident in the Democratic Party's ability to kind of produce that. If you catch my drift. I know I wasn't happy with our quote choices. Yep. I just don't know that it was fair for y'all, and that's unfortunate. Yeah, so be it. And yet here we are. Are you ready for the country to spontaneously combust on Inauguration Day? Yeah, sure. Bring it. Sure. I'm ready. Why not? Why not? We've lived, okay, as a allegedly millennial, okay? As an alleged millennial, we've been through what? Like 2 financial crashes? We've been through 2 financial crashes. We've been through Y2. We survived Y2K. Recently, a pandemic. Sure, why not? Let's throw a fully fascistic government in the mix. Why not? Why not?
And social justice politics, while not realizing that working class people includes black women, Latino people, queer people. So by making this an either or, you're dichotomizing it when it needs to be both. So as you can see, the goal was to cynically frame Sanders as a class reductionist. And to be fair, your analysis absolutely must contain both class-based and social justice politics. Delivering materially for all working class people indeed is crucial, but that isn't going to eliminate racism or liberate queer people, for example. You do have to do both. And Bernie Sanders, he did struggle in some ways to talk about race politics. He came from an overwhelmingly white state, and as a result, he did struggle to communicate his understanding on issues related to race and gender, particularly in 2016. And, he didn't have a black agenda, and I think that hurt him. Right? But by 2020, even though he still was by no means perfect, he made a huge improvement. He more meaningfully engaged in issues regarding sex and gender, and he even supported free gender confirmation surgeries as part of Medicare for All. Now, imagine if a politician did that today. Republicans would call them woke and accuse them of wanting to do these surgeries on children.
Yep. No, not financial crashes. To financial wealthy people get mega socialism events. Yeah, there you go. Things were fine last time, and I'm sure it'll be all right. I don't know if things were, quote, fine last time. I think last time we had a massively mismanaged pandemic that ended up killing people, a gross failure of government. We've had a destabilization of institutions to where now even democratic norms are being destroyed. So no, I don't know about, quote, fine, but yeah. Marginalized people didn't find it to be fine. Correct. No spontaneous combustion, but deregulation is a hell of a ride. Yep, and unfortunately, again, the damage that this administration will do is incalculable. Because to undo that and then start again, it's like you. No, I'm not thinking. It's what I saw. It's what I saw. It's not an opinion that I just plucked out of the air. It's literally what we experienced as a country, right? Like you had a guy, you had a guy win the presidency after, first of all, declaring that elections were rigged. Even before he had won. I mean, it's just wild. So yeah, I don't know about, quote, fine. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, an asteroid could take the Earth out. Yeah, I suppose so. When they plan to kick out all the possible positions to replace them with sycophants, that Project 25 will be more damaging than last time. Yeah, I suspect that if he does get his way, and I suppose not just him, but if Republicans get their way, yeah, some of this will come to fruition. That's a real thing, by the way. Oh, the asteroid? Oh man. Well then great. Then great. I suppose in 4 years it won't really matter. Then what? Right? It should not hit us, but small chance. I suppose if it hits us in, 4 years, and I guess none of this matters, right?
But do you want to know what people said about that policy proposal back in 2020? Jack fucking shit. Because they were all too busy trying to undermine Bernie Sanders' broader message about class. And that kind of just demonstrates how powerful it is to combine class politics with social justice politics. The antagonistic scapegoating that Republicans rely on to win elections.
He did deny any connections to Project 2020. Oh, well, thank goodness he denied any connections to that because, he's such a truth teller. Man, fantastic. I'm so glad, I'm so glad that all he has to do is say that he doesn't have any connections to Project 2025 while actually putting in the same people that are involved in Project 2025 in his cabinet. I mean, yeah, sure, whatever. I guess if he tells you that the sky is green, then I suppose it is because he said so. Oh man, I love this. This is amazing. This is fantastic logic.
just wasn't viable with Bernie Sanders because he was cutting to the core and addressing real issues that affect working class people. So voters weren't as easily distracted with stories about trans athletes or immigrants or crime because Bernie Sanders had a concrete plan to change their lives for the better. It was harder for Republicans to frame Bernie's politics as us versus them. It's not, wow, well, why do these marginalized groups get special treatments while I'm still struggling? It was a message of we all can benefit. We all can have better lives. And that was really, really powerful. But the Democratic elites rejected Bernie's politics because, let's face it, it was antithetical to their neoliberal worldview and conflicted with the interests of their donors. Every single policy that Bernie Sanders proposed went against what the Democratic Party's corporate donors wanted. And the Democratic Party had to make a choice. Do we roll with this?
Politicians are all liars. Maybe. He's just like he's just a very well known and documented liar. Like not just politician level of lying. I mean, like this dude is a well documented pathological liar. He lies about everything. Nothing about this guy is real. Like it's actually wild. I just tend to take people at the word. Well, I wouldn't. That's the problem. So is Biden. At least he's somewhat a president. But I'm talking about sure, Biden lied about things, as you said, politicians do. But I mean, like, Trump is like a whole different level. Even before getting into politics. All right. Sorry about that, folks. The stream died again. So that's cool. Whew, the stream died again. Anyways, so yeah, like we're not just dealing with like your normal average like politician, that like, okay, we know that like politicians lie. Like, this is a dude who's been known for this kind of stuff since, like, even before politics, is what I'm trying to say. Like, nothing about this dude is real. Anyways.
Politics, or do we stick with the status quo and cross our fingers and hope that demographic destiny comes to fruition and just side with the donors? And they opted for the latter. And that's not to say that Democrats haven't made some positive changes in light of Bernie Sanders' rise. Even though Biden is a war criminal, his NLRB enabled workers to make substantial gains. And I think that Kamala's child tax credit and Medicare expansion, these were really good proposals. So there has been movement, some movement, albeit incremental movement, incremental policies that all paled in comparison to Bernie Sanders' proposals that were systemic. And it was questionable if Kamala would ever talk about these policies again because, Joe Biden responded to the...
Yeah, and like that's the thing though, right? Like these people that are what we call the Democratic establishment, right? Like the people that we call the Democratic establishment, they are not interested in addressing issues in a systemic way, right? Because they are the status quo. So why would you change the status quo if you are the status quo? And that I think that kind of points to the problem that we're getting at here. Whereas a more left-wing populist like Bernie Sanders is trying to address these problems in a systemic way because fundamentally that's the issue, right? That's the problem. Like you can try to make things better in a incremental way and like, okay, fine. But until the fundamental problem is dealt with, you're always going to have these type of issues, right? Like say tomorrow you start making plans for, say, a public option for healthcare. Well, as long as private health insurance companies exist, they will make sure that, number one, it doesn't even happen. And two, if a public option does manifest itself, then they will do their best to make sure that it is untenable and it returns back to private hands. So, again, while some, obviously I will take something over the nothing, at the end of the day, you have to address these problems in a systemic way. Otherwise, you are, without mincing words, you're not doing jack shit.
Popularity of Medicare for All by proposing a public option, and then once he was elected, we never heard about it again. He ran on $2,000 checks. Once they were elected, that number got cut down to, what was it, like 1,400, 1,600? So there's a trust issue here. But regardless, you know, even though they tried to adapt at least a little bit, it wasn't enough, and Trump still won. And Hitjen continues, Sanders and his supporters were not blindsided by the election, referring to Kamala's defeat in November, and used the election as an opportunity to remind audiences that his assessment over the last decade was correct. In a widely circulated post-election op-ed for Boston Globe titled Democrats Must Choose, the Elites or the Working Class, Sanders reiterated this point that the Democratic Party had failed to attract or energize the working class and lost the election as a result. Given the overwhelming evidence that the Democratic Party not only lost, but was losing key parts of its base, young people, women, Muslims, and people of color, legacy media figures such as Carville had no choice but to tacitly admit that their political theory was wrong. But don't fool yourself. Them admitting that they're wrong.
And even it's so, like, it's too late, man. Okay? Like, it's too freaking late. Like, you know, like, despite all the freaking warnings, despite all the freaking warnings, despite all the evidence, they still so arrogantly believed that they were right. And unfortunately, that means we all lose. Okay? That's the problem.
Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to change. Even if they did embrace Bernie Sanders' style of politics, it may be too late, because I genuinely don't know if the next election will be free or fair now after 4 more years of Donald Trump. But I don't think we even have to speculate about whether or not the party is going to change, because they could have already demonstrated their willingness to change by passing the baton to an actual left-wing populist like Bernie Sanders, named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You know, they could have made her the top-ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, but instead they opted to give that job to a 74-year-old corporate Democrat with esophageal cancer, which is a decision that is truly baffling. That man should be resting and focusing on his health. He is in no position to be the face of the Democratic Party's opposition to Donald Trump, but here we are. So clearly Democrats didn't learn their lesson, and I see a lot of people focused on the upcoming DNC race, which is important, but I focused on that last time, and the Democratic Party had an opportunity then to opt for somebody more progressive in Keith Ellison, and Obama stepped in at the last moment to make sure that Tom Perez was the winner. So I have no interest in even following that, because I have no hope that the party is going to change. And their stubbornness is in part why we're in this predicament today, where a fascist with authoritarian tendencies and colonialist ambitions is about to take office and fuck up the country for generations. And it's so sad, because it didn't have to be this way. In fact, Mexico is giving us a glimpse at what could have been. As David Adler writes, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum proclaimed at her 100-day address, quote, "We will not return to the neoliberal model. We will not return to the regime of privileges and corruption. We say for the good of all, first the poor." And guess what? People love her. She has an 80% approval rating and won in a landslide. Her predecessor, President AMLO, made the same promises that she made, but unlike Democrats, he actually delivered. And she seems poised to do the same thing. And the result has been that fascism in Mexico has been thoroughly defeated. In fact, the right wing in general is basically politically irrelevant in Mexico due to the popularity of Sheinbaum and AMLO's party. And even though I'm really happy for them, I've got to admit, I'm a little bit jealous, because we could have had that. That could have been us. We could have had it all. They elected their first female president and improved people's lives. That is how it's done.
Oh, man. You know, you have to laugh, because if you don't, you'll scream, right? You have to laugh because the alternative is just screaming into the ether because of how freaking frustrating this whole situation is, right? Like, It's literally the freaking Cassandra syndrome, right? It's literally the Cassandra syndrome. We've been talking about the same damn iceberg for years now. We've been talking about the same damn iceberg for years now. And now that we've hit it, these clowns are going, surprise Pikachu facing and going, oh, well, I guess they were right. Bro, the iceberg's been hit, man. The ship's been hit. It's a done deal. So cool. Thanks for nothing.
And Mexico, they're not a fluke. The last time that we actually did have a strong left-wing president in this country, he was elected so many times that we had to create term limits because he just kept winning again and again and again. Because guess what? When you actually pass policies that improve people's lives and things get better, they will vote for you. But I'll be honest, it kind of feels pointless to even talk about strategy now because what's the point, right? I'm glad that they're all admitting that Bernie Sanders is right. I guess that's cathartic in some sense. But I don't know if we can change things at this point. I genuinely don't know if America will be the same after 4 more years of Donald Trump. I don't know if democracy or what's left of it can survive another Trump term. I genuinely don't know. I don't know if the planet can survive, even if democracy can survive. So, the point is that times are really fucking bleak right now, and we could be in an entirely different timeline where Bernie Sanders just completed his 2nd term and his successor was about to be sworn in. But instead, we're stuck in the worst timeline imaginable where Donald Trump is about to be sworn in again, this time after inciting an insurrection and evading prison time. So, shit's dark. But as things continue to get worse, harness the rage that you're feeling and use it to overthrow the very elites that are responsible for this shitty predicament. And in the event we ever do get the chance to vote for somebody who's a real left-wing populist like Bernie Sanders and they're not full of shit, please don't let corporate media trick you into voting against your own self-interest.
Yeah, man, have some freaking class solidarity. Holy yikes. Seriously, I don't know when the next opportunity will come to actually be enthusiastic about a real left-wing candidate that has the working class's interests. But if it happens, and when it happens, then we ideally all would rally behind that candidate and try to do some freaking good for once. Yeah. As far as the Democratic Party is concerned, the National Democratic Party is just a bunch of losers. The National Democratic Party is just filled with a bunch of losers who refuse to learn, and until that changes, then there's not much that can be done, at least at the federal level. Should you still participate in the system? Yeah, of course, there are still reasons as to why you should show up to the ballot box. But as far as being a full-throated supporter of the National Democratic Party, it's hard, man. There's really not much to go on here. Now that the cat's away, yep, I'll be gone, but have fun. OBS seems to be grouchy. I genuinely think it's OBS. Needs more baked goods. I really think it's OBS, man. I really do. I'm not gonna lie. I think that I've narrowed it down to it having to be OBS because, the camera works, right? So the camera's not going anywhere. The little light is still on even when the stream crashes. So it's definitely not the devices itself. It's not a power issue because they're all powered, and I've lowered the amount of devices on said power hub. So it can't be that. It can't be Windows because Windows is still picking up all my devices and none have disconnected. I don't know. In any case, we may disagree, but I got much love for y'all and everyone. In any case, I don't know what the real issue is. It might be Windows. Who knows? It might be Windows. It might be OBS. It might be a combination of the Windows. I don't know. I just don't know. Let me know if you want to do some sort of testing. Yeah, we might have to do something. And try to figure it out. Maybe Friday. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is here. Like maybe on a Friday or on a weekend to just kind of figure this out because like I genuinely don't know what's going on. I've tried pretty much everything. So we will see. See, there it goes again. And it only happens when I'm streaming. So, yeah. That's cool. All right. Let's see. Okay. Anyways. It's like a secret code that nobody knows. Just now in 4 years, if we're still around, I'll come back and give you a big old told you so. Yeah, it's not about, obviously we'll all be around. It's just how much damage that is left. Speak your truth. I shall. I shall.
Bro, the homeless are doing it. They're more inclined to use fire to get their anger out.
And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider.
Comedian Bill Burr has his finger on the pulse in a way that many comedians simply do not. So I'm going to get to a couple of clips here from his interview with Jimmy Kimmel last night, as well as some quotes from his interview with Variety that touch on many topics, including the wildfires as well, but also Gaza, CEOs, and his thoughts on comedians complaining about not being able to say things. And we'll get to some comments that he makes about the wildfires that appeared to, I'm not sure if he was aware of Joe Rogan's comments, but they are clearly completely in contrast to what Joe Rogan is saying, which, again, Rogan is completely out of touch. Bill Burr, one of the few that actually, I should say one of the few in that sort of status that know what is actually going on. So let me first get to the first clip with Jimmy Kimmel.
I heard you had to evacuate your home.
Yes, like most people I had to. I got lucky, the winds moved, but, the fire was coming and all that stuff. So I feel lucky.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet,
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean? And then I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds. You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
Armchair freaking firefighters over here.
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
All right, this.
Oh my God, that is so freaking true, man. All these freaking all these armchair fire chiefs coming out of the woodworks. I assume that these are the same people who these are the same people who I imagine became pandemic experts, pandemic control experts as well. So yeah, fantastic. Bill Burr isn't perfect, but he's goals to me.
This gets to a topic that I have wanted to discuss concerning these wildfires, and that is how some people that have a platform, how they've been using their platform to largely focus on the local politicians in California, as if they're the problem and not the fact that a massive climate disaster hit the state. So Bill Burr goes deeper on this topic in his interview with Variety. I'll link to this below the video as well. But he has a new special coming out, which is why he's doing all these interviews now. But he goes on to say he's disgusted by the fact that the natural disasters, some of the worst in California's history, have already become politicized online. But what kills me is a lot of it is just bots. I think it's treasonous behavior to politicize everything, keeping regular working people at each other's throats. That is only good for one group of people, and it's not working people.
Yeah, that's super freaking true. That is super freaking facts. 100%.
So that, I think, is speaking to how some of the complaints, particularly from the right, have been focused on, the firefighters and DEI, and oh my God, the fire department's led by a lesbian woman, as if the firefighters are the focus of your ire from a fire that is happening. Like, it's so stupid. These are the people, these are the first responders. These are the ones actually trying to save lives.
Yeah.
And some have been blaming them for
exactly squirrel, right? Don't pay attention to the actual issues that have to be talked about. No. You got to pay attention to the fact that it was a female fire chief, and incidentally, she is a lesbian. So that's what we need to talk about. We need to talk about the Democrats and liberal policies, ? Like, that's what we need to be talking about, instead of like the actual freaking underlying issues that need to be addressed.
These disasters.
If a man really hated ads, here's what he would do. Day one, he would install Pi on his computer without spending.
But he goes on to say, if I'm going to make fun of CNN, I've got to make fun of Fox. I make fun of the whole thing because I don't feel that politicians work for us. They work for the super rich, and they're grossly underpaid, so they're open to bribery. It gives regular people something to get mad at. Like with these fires, people are blaming Governor Newsom. It doesn't make a difference. That was going to happen no matter who was governor. Which also goes to the fact...
Yeah, like, what, what force, what human capabilities do we have to stop, like, hurricane force winds from, like, escalating these things so quickly, and how far a ember can travel and start fire somewhere else. I mean, like, we have no control over that. As far as the exacerbating factors like the climate crisis, that's on Republicans and conservative politicians, conservative Democratic politicians as well, who have chosen to allow the fossil fuel industry to do what it's been doing for decades. So on that aspect, yeah, like, but that's not like Governor Newsom, right? Like, this has been a problem for decades.
That many of these wildfires have hit people that are more well off. If let's say Governor Newsom only worked for the rich, and you could argue in many ways he does, but let's say that's his focus. Why wouldn't he do what he could to stop the fires if he could do that? Clearly, there's a greater issue here, and that is the climate crisis that has exacerbated these sorts of disasters. So, as Vox writes here, firefighters are working desperately to corral the flames and keep them away from people's homes, but there's little they can do to halt the combination of ample fuel, dry weather, and high winds.
Right. Like, the climate crisis does play its part because it's the reason why we've seen higher temperatures. It's the reason why we see more higher drought periods and worsening rain periods when it does come. I mean, like it does have a factor to play.
And that speaks to just the historically low rainfall in LA this winter. So if you remember about a year ago, there was record high rainfall. There were floods in and around LA. This year, there hasn't been rain in LA since May, and that has led to incredibly dry conditions. And look where they're sitting at here in terms of, you know, the low rainfall, 2.2% compared to, you know, where the average is or where the record high is. Just this has led to conditions on the ground that are insane. And as The Guardian writes, these fires are an especially acute example of something climate scientists have been warning about for decades: compound climate disasters that, when they occur simultaneously, produce much more damage than they would individually. If your focus in response to these fires are on local politicians as opposed to the greater issue of the climate crisis, then you're missing the point. It's like getting angry at the waiter for the restaurant closing down. Maybe aim a little higher. The issue aren't the politicians on the ground in this situation. You could, you know, argue the response could be a little better. You could argue about funding and where more funding should be. But the mass of the disaster would have happened regardless because of the conditions on the ground and because of the conditions of the climate crisis that created those conditions. So let me get to the next clip.
No, man, these guys were out there clearing the trees, getting the wires back up and everything. You know, I mean, it was like the perfect awful thing that could have happened, and it did. And I love how all the chatter out there is about bands of illegal immigrants and homeless people lighting fires. They light fires every day. They're living outside. They're cold. And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider. You know, and they're talking about looting, but CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. So just to touch on that, I forget which insurance company was. I think it was State Farm or something like that. Like canceled policies before all of this happened. Like, dude, what are you doing, man? And like now, how many people are going to have to go through this fight with their insurance companies after losing everything? So yeah, screw these people.
Free Luigi! I love how they acted surprised. Why did that happen? I have no idea. He wrote on the bullets why it happened.
Oh, we're back to Luigi. Okay, yeah.
I never left Luigi.
Oh, man.
All right, I got to get to his comments there on Luigi and the CEOs with another quote that he has in the Variety interview, as well as I'll get to his comments on Gaza. But first, I want to touch on these comments that he made about both the homeless apparently starting the fires and the looting as well, because these are two topics that were just recently touched on in an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which many are now calling the Joe Rogan Billionaire Bootlicking Experience, as this is apparently where billionaires now go to recycle their image. But God, Rogan has completely lost his way. This used to be a podcast that was enjoyable, 5-10 years ago, but it's completely just useless now. But let me get to some of these comments because this is amazing.
Yeah, it's just like two people. What is it? I've heard this described as like just two people who know absolutely nothing about what they're talking about, saying exactly to each other, yeah.
As the Tennessee Holler writes here, Rogan mocks the idea that climate change is a factor, blames the fires on homeless people, says LA lets looters go.
This is a whiny liberal. It's fucking climate change. Wake up. No, it's arson, you fucking idiots.
I think it's Mr. Beast. He's setting up a new video.
Wow. That's a strong accusation.
Bold.
No, just kidding.
But
But they've been trying to get rid of the homeless for a while.
Bro, the homeless are doing it.
Well, they're flammable.
Everyone is. But they.
How can how can anybody freaking stand this? Like we've watched about 10 seconds of this. Right? What is it? 7:43. We've watched about 20 seconds of this, and I'm already freaking annoyed. Who watches this? Like, this is actually freaking annoying.
They're more inclined to use fire to get their anger out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Huberman actually.
That's true, man. Freaking losers.
Actually caught people lighting things on fire. He filmed it. He put it up on his Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. In the middle of the firestorm, people were lighting things on fire to contribute to the fire.
Wow.
You've got losers.
Whoa.
You have 100,000 losers that are just camping on your street. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to
Nah, man, the losers are the 3 or 4 of you in that room.
happen when the people with the houses are in jeopardy? What do you think is going to happen when these people that are living in $50 million houses and you're camping out a block away, which is exactly what's going on over there?
And the looting.
Well, they looted people's houses when they found out that places were getting evacuated. Swarms of organized gangs.
Swarms. Okay, swarms. Are we gonna get like any type of evidence of this? About organized gangs? Okay. The only cherry on top of this shit cake would be if they're organized gangs coming in from the border. Okay, that would be the cherry on this shit cake. But okay.
We're showing up. This lady said 100 guys showed up in front of this house.
Oh, well, damn, cool. This random lady that you won't show the clip of says so, I guess, Sure.
And she thought they were helping our neighbor move. They just broke down the door and started stealing TVs, stealing everything.
This man is just deep-throating right-wing talking points and regurgitating it for the rest of us. It is so amazing to watch. Now, yes, of course, arson likely was one of the factors in sparking it, but arson exists all over the world. Very rarely does it lead to an entire state catching fire. Clearly, there are other factors at play here when it comes to just how dry the LA area has been. So, as Forbes writes here, what sparked the California wildfires? Experts consider power lines, fireworks, and arson. So many things could have sparked it. But what leads to it continuing as long as it has? High winds, the incredibly dry conditions on the ground, obviously are factors here. And the reason that those are things is because of the conditions of the climate. It's just, this is a guy that, what is this, back in 2018, was clowning Candace Owens for not believing in climate change. And now here he is in 2025 being the clown, being the absolute dipshit and making fun of people who discuss climate change. It's been so sad to watch. Now, let me get to Bill Burr's comments on CEOs here. So in Variety, he says the funny thing when the CEO got whacked was watching CEOs have to be uncomfortable. I'm sure they didn't learn anything, but it's like, this is how you make everybody feel day to day as you apply pressure. Because, quote, that's how business is done. How you leave this burning wreckage of destroyed lives as you restructure or consolidate. It was fun for them to worry. And I've discussed other comments that he made on the CEO in the past as well. He has been one of the few voices in this sort of, celebrity status willing to say this sort of thing. He also goes on, I was going to watch his special anyways, but I really want to see it day one, considering it apparently one of the first topics he gets into is Israel and Palestine. So he says, I'm just saying we need to come up with a way to solve our differences without dropping bombs on children. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
Hey, Dan Anonymously, welcome. Mouselander, welcome. My pet turnip is smarter than Joe Rogan. Yeah. Yeah.
So, he claims it's apolitical. Bill Burr tries to hit both sides. He tries to, you could argue, be apolitical. but everything is political. That's the reality of the world. So it's good to see that, you know, he's against dropping bombs on children. I know it's sort of a low bar here, but it's a bar that not many people with the kind of platform he has been willing to even discuss. And this is on the idea, you know, comedians like Joe Rogan complaining about, oh, you can't say anything anymore. People are acting like when you can. People are acting like what you can say now in America, you could say 50 or 60 years ago. When I was born, that was right after Lenny Bruce was arrested for obscenity in San Francisco and George Carlin repeatedly for his 7 dirty words routine. People were really nervous that you couldn't say certain things. That doesn't exist anymore. I guess it exists online in a phony way. This goes, again, to how Bill Burr is so much more in tune with culture and society.
I honestly don't get the appeal, but not everything is for me. Yeah, I mean, as far as what the Rogan podcast,
then the vast majority of comedians in his space, or at least comedians that have his level of popularity. I love to see it. It's been wonderful to watch Bill Burr touch on these issues in a way that very few people are willing to do, and speak truth in a way that I think is able to get in the minds, in the heads of more people across political spectrums in a way that many comedians simply are not able, and that many people generally simply are not able to do.
Yep, being canceled doesn't really have teeth like getting a criminal record for most people. Yep. That's true. Gotta bounce. Nice to hang with y'all. Thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Trump nominee Chris Wright to lay out the top 3 goals as energy secretary. Yeah, cool. Chris Wright, the president-elect, Trump's nominee to lead the energy department, will celebrate his 60th birthday on Wednesday by introducing himself to senators as a, quote, science geek turned tech nerd turned lifelong energy entrepreneur. So, like, yeah, this is just all code for, like, fossil fuel. So, yeah. Increased energy production is central to Trump's overall economic strategy, and he'll need an energy secretary who can translate his vision of an oil and gas boom into a practical reality. Right, so, like, again, this is, like, propaganda from the fossil fuel industry. When they mean energy, they mean fossil fuel, and they want you to connect energy and fossil fuel. Like, that is interconnected. Never mind about any other alternative sources of energy. The only thing you need to be talking about when we speak about energy is fossil fuel. Wright, who has met with every member of the Energy and Natural Resource Committee, will make it clear that he wants to collaborate with them on shared goals, according to his opening statement. Data, he says, will be the guiding light, but he won't be shy about what he sees as a faulty mindset. Quote, previous administrations have viewed energy as a liability instead of an immense national asset that it is. Question mark? Like, if that's true, then, like, the immediate thought process, if data truly is the guiding light here, then the first thing that you would be talking about is decreasing our dependence on fossil fuels. Quote, federal policies today make it too easy to stop projects. He means oil. He means fossil fuel pipelines and projects, and very hard to start and complete projects. This makes, quote, energy, fossil fuels, more expensive and, quote, less reliable, question mark. The Trump donor and CEO of Liberty Energy, a fracking service company, will tell senators on the Energy and Natural Resource Committee that he'll focus on 3 immediate tasks if confirmed as energy secretary. Number 1, he plans to, quote, unleash energy, American energy at home and abroad to restore energy dominance. Again, this is not about energy necessarily. This is about fossil fuels. He will call for the U.S. to, quote, lead the world in innovation and technology breakthroughs. Okay, that's nothing. He wants to build things in America again and remove barriers to progress. That is translated to deregulation. That's what that means. Wright's confirmation hearing is unlikely to be the R-rated affair that Pete Hegseth was yesterday, but Wright doesn't keep his energy evangelism to himself. The hearing is expected to engender plenty of passionate politics from both sides of the aisle, question mark. The LA fires continue to rage. Democrats are eager to draw attention to climate change while also extracting guarantees about President Biden's clean energy tax credits. The Denver native and longtime energy entrepreneur is an unapologetic advocate for oil and gas. Yep. Seizing any opportunity to discuss how increased production can improve human lives across the globe, his critics are ready to pounce. So yeah, I mean, like, we're putting a oil and gas mouthpiece as the head of, quote, energy. So yeah, that's cool. He has called oil and gas critics nuts, insisting there's no dirty energy, question mark. What? There's no clean energy. There's no good stuff. There's no bad stuff. Everything has trade-offs. Okay, but like the trade-offs that we're doing right now, for the trade-offs for using fossil fuels heavily outweigh the trade-offs that we would be using that would entail by using renewable sources. Okay, like that's the problem, and this is like the freaking like deceptive and dishonest framing that this ghoul is doing. No, it's not. This is just like this is just a nothing burger, right? Like, oh well, how could you call energy dirty or clean? It's not really energy. It's not really dirty or clean. It's just energy. Well, no. What we mean is certain ways of producing electricity are inherently more polluting than others. Oh, there's no good stuff, there's no bad stuff. Well, some ways of producing energy are better than others. So yeah, like this is just nonsense. Yeah, think of the birds. At a Washington event before the election, Wright downplayed the importance of renewable energy sources, but he touted the advantage of nuclear power, saying it should go from 4% of energy production to 10%. Wow, thanks, dude. The committee hearing is likely to reflect the same divided opinions that dominated the presidential campaign. No, there's no divided opinions here. Like, this is something that, like, there is no divided opinions. There's once there either you believe in the established science that has been the case for years now, decades now, or you don't. There's no divided opinions here. You either believe the established science, or you don't. It's really that simple. In this case, Democrats are expected to press Wright on the severity of climate change and humanity's role in causing it. Republicans will likely focus on energy security and potential economic benefits and jobs that the industry creates. But like, there's a problem with that because like. You could have energy security and potential economic benefits that we know that's possible, and jobs that a green industry would create as well. So That's not a compelling argument. Right? Has acknowledged that that climate change is real, but he has referred to it as a challenge and far from the greatest threat to human life. Cool. Thanks, dude. Those views will draw scrutiny from the committee Democrats who view climate change as an existential threat. President-elect Trump's pick of energy to lead the energy department, Chris Wright, walked a fine line on Wednesday today as he called climate change a real and global phenomenon, but remained skeptical during his U.S. Senate confirmation hearing. Wright, the CEO of a fracking company, oh God. The CEO of a fracking company, Liberty Energy, looked to temper his tone but stood by prior statements, criticized climate zealots, and calling climate change not a pressing concern. Thanks, dude. So yeah, I think like that's all we need to know about this guy, and kind of getting a glimpse as to what we can expect for this administration. Cool, man. Fox is guarding the hen house, you know. The literal CEOs of fracking in charge of energy. That's cool. Phenomenal. Fantastic stuff. Awesome. Another notable international event happened. Biden's, quote, Cuba bombshell, which is just literally not designating them as a terrorist state, shocks Florida Dems. Biden's last-minute executive order on yesterday, to undo sanctions on Cuba and delist the socialist nation as a terrorism sponsor is outraging already dispirited Florida Democrats. Yeah, whatever, dude. Like, whatever, bro. Biden's order will be undone almost as soon as Donald Trump replaces him on Monday, so it will have little practical effect. Cool. The Democratic way, right? But Florida Dems fear that Biden's move give Trump a chance to frame their party as beholden to socialists. Whatever, man. Seriously, like, grow up. Grow a freaking spine, okay? Like, grow a freaking spine. They're gonna call you socialist no matter what, okay? Like, if Biden never did any of this, they'll still call them socialist, okay? Even before this happened, they called the Dems a radical socialist, communist, leftist party, okay? Whatever, dude. Like, this is so beyond stupid. It's actually incredible. It's actually incredible that this is the reaction that the Florida Dems are having. Quote, in Florida, where Hispanics make up 19% of the vote, the issue of, quote, socialism turns off many people with roots in Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Colombia, countries many of them escape to avoid, quote, leftist violence or regimes, question mark. This is Joe Biden literally sinking the Democratic Party in the state of Florida big time. I've got news for you, man. I've got news. That party in the state of Florida is already sunk, okay? So just like freaking grow a spine, okay? And like handle business, man. Like if you're being paralyzed by the fact that like your Republican opponents, literal fascist are saying that you're a socialist, then like whatever, man. Like grow a freaking spine. Grow a freaking spine. That party sank 2 years ago. Yep. Oh boy, are we still good? Are we still live? Are we still live? Are we still good? Says we're live, so. Yep, alright, cool. Alright, we soldier on, folks. Echo Resto Dragon, welcome. This is Joe Biden literally sinking the Democratic Party in the state of Florida big time, said Representative Jared Moskowitz, a, quote, moderate Florida Democrat, adding that South Florida congressional delegation members share his view. Just as we try to patch a hole in the boat, Biden punches another hole in it. Florida's a red state, and Biden just waved the white flag of surrender. How, dude? Like, this makes no sense. Biden, yeah, Florida's a red state, so you need to get to freaking work, man. Stop. Like, don't worry about the freaking Republicans, man. Like, don't worry about what your opponents can't think about you. Seriously. Worry about what your constituents think about you. Worry about how you're going to meaningfully improve their lives, okay? That's your job. You're supposed to be a representative of these constituents, okay? Conservative Hispanics have helped propel Republicans to power in Florida, which Trump won in November with about 55% of the vote. Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried said in a statement that she was disappointed in Biden's decision. A source spoke with her, said she was blindsided by it and was enraged. Whatever, man. Losers. Losers. Biden's order came on the eve of Florida Senator Marco Rubio's first confirmation hearing to be Secretary of State. A Cuban-American and anti-Marxist hardliner, Rubio helped write Trump's Cuba sanction in 2017. They're designated to keep U.S. dollars from financing Cuba's military apparatus. Ah, yes. The very, very well-developed military apparatus, GAESA, which controls the country's major hotels and tourism industry. Biden's spokesperson said the timing of the order and Rubio's confirmation hearing was a, quote, coincidence. Biden said his order was part of a deal brokered by the Catholic Church in return for Cuba agreeing to release 553 prisoners. So, like, another way of putting it is just fucking diplomacy, man. Trump's team doesn't believe the White House explanation and said that the departing president's decision has made Cuba a front-burner issue for the new Trump administration. The Biden administration might see this as an FU to Rubio, but we'll get the last laugh, said Mauricio Claver Carone, Rubio ally and Trump's incoming envoy to Latin America. Cool. Claver Carone said Trump's administration probably won't just reissue the sanctions, but instead will make them bigger and harder with broader effects than last time. What an asshole. Rubio and this asshole and Representative Mike Waltz, Trump's incoming national security advisor, all believe Cuba acts as the Marxist Human Resource Department for anti-U.S. government in Latin America. Gotcha. In Venezuela, for example, Cuba's intelligence services have helped advise dictator Nicolas Maduro to help keep him in power. Florida broke significantly towards Republicans during Trump's unsuccessful re-election campaign in 2020 when he emphasized the anti-socialist message. Echo Wrestle Dragon hitting that 1 year sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. That means you get the black badge. There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it. That was particularly effective in Miami-Dade County, the state's largest county that once was a Democratic bastion and has the state's highest concentration of Hispanic voters. Trump won Miami-Dade by 11 percentage points in 2024, his first campaign 8 years earlier. He lost it by nearly 30. Excuse me. After Biden lost Florida to Trump in 2020, the Democrats' political operation began considering it a red state and began directing donor money to political activity elsewhere. Miami-Dade Mayor Danielle Levine-Cava, a Democrat, said in a statement after Biden's order that the U.S. needs to hold the Cuban regime accountable, or maybe, like, I don't know, man, mind your business. Other Florida Democrats were more harsh. Former Senator Annette Taddeo called Biden's decision a slap in the face, to the broader diaspora community in Miami-Dade and across our nation, and have sadly been forced to flee dictatorship and violence. Political consultant Christian Over said Biden's team delivered a masterclass of what not to do and should have emphasized securing the release of 500 political prisoners in the final week of his presidency. This timing is a Harvard textbook of case of political malpractice by Biden, or maybe it's political malpractice on the Democrat side by even giving a shit about this and allowing Republicans to drive the narrative. Seriously. This is wild. Quote, when you know the incoming administration has Marco Rubio, Mauricio Carricolone, and Florida Cuban-American nominees for ambassadorship for Spain, Argentina, and Panama, you don't rile them up, you keep things quiet. Critics of U.S. policy in Cuba say 6 decades of sanctions haven't worked because the island government is still run by, quote, Marxists. They credit former President Obama for trying to normalize relations and say Biden should get credit for trying to free prisoners. If the Trump administration reimposes sanctions and Cuba doesn't release the prisoners, that's on Trump, said Fernand Amendi, a Democrat and Miami-based pollster. Republicans have no problems weaponizing trauma of the Cuban community for political gain. True. Exactly. Exactly. Unbelievable, man. Spineless. Spineless. We got one more. We got one more, folks. TikTok prepares to shut down app in the U.S. on Sunday. Yep, it looks like good because I'm late for tacos. All right, we'll try to speed this up. A whole day late. Oh, yeah, that's true. Taco Tuesday. TikTok plans to shut U.S. operations of its social media app used by 170 million Americans on Sunday when a federal ban is set to take effect, barring a last-minute reprieve. People familiar with the matter said on Wednesday. The Washington Post reported that President-elect Trump, whose term begins a day after a ban would start, is considering issuing an executive order to suspend enforcement of a shutdown for 60 to 90 days. The newspaper did not say how Trump could legally do so. The law signed in April mandates a ban on new TikTok downloads on Apple or Google if the Chinese parent company ByteDance fails to divest the site. Users who have downloaded TikTok would theoretically still be able to use the app, except the law also bars U.S. companies starting on Sunday from providing services to enable the distribution, maintenance, or updates. Cool. Nice. Very cool. Trump administration transition team did not have an immediate comment. Trump has said he would have time. He should have time after taking office to pursue a political resolution of the issue. TikTok itself is a fantastic platform. Trump's incoming national security advisor, Mike Waltz, told Fox News, we're going to find a way to preserve it, but protect people's data. Right. Like if it was actually about protecting people's data, then we would also be talking about what Facebook is doing. And what, these major social media companies are doing, not just TikTok. We would be having a conversation about YouTube, about Facebook, Twitter. not just TikTok. Thanks, Joe. Indeed. A White House official told Reuters on Wednesday President Biden has no plans to intervene and block a ban in his final days in office if the Supreme Court fails to act, and added Biden is legally unable to intervene absent a credible plan from ByteDance to divest from TikTok. U.S. Senator Ed Markey on Wednesday sought unanimous consent to extend the deadline for ByteDance to divest by 270 days, but Republican Senator Tom Cotton blocked the proposal. If it is banned, TikTok plans that users attempting to open the app will see a pop-up message directing them to a website with information about the ban. The people said requesting anonymity as the matter is not public. We could go dark. Essentially, the platform shuts down, said TikTok lawyer Noel Francisco told the Supreme Court last week. The company also plans to give users an option to download all their data so they can take a record of their own personal information. The U.S. Supreme Court is currently deciding whether to uphold the law and allow TikTok to be banned on Sunday, overturn the law, or pause the law to give the court more time to make the decision. Shutting down TikTok in the U.S. could make it unavailable for users in many other countries, the company said in a court filing, because hundreds of service providers in the U.S. help make the platform available to TikTok users around the world and could no longer do so starting on Sunday. TikTok said this quarter of filing an appeal said in the court filing an order was needed to avoid interruption of services for tens of millions of TikTok users outside the U.S. TikTok said that the prohibitions would eventually make the app unusable, noting in the filing that data centers would almost certainly conclude that they can no longer store TikTok code, content, or data. The source said the shutdown aims to protect TikTok service providers from legal liability and make it easier to resume operations if President-elect Trump opts to roll back any ban. Shutting down such services does not require longer planning, one of the sources said, noting that most operations have been continuing as usual this week. If the ban does get reversed later, TikTok would be able to restore service for U.S. users in a relatively short time. TikTok and its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. U.S. tech publication The Information first reported the news on Tuesday. Privately held, ByteDance is about 60% owned, and institutional investors such as BlackRock and General Atlantic, while its founders and employees own 20% each. It has more than 7,000 employees in the U.S. President Biden last year signed a law requiring ByteDance to sell U.S. assets by January 19th or face a nationwide ban. Last week, the Supreme Court seemed to incline to uphold the law despite calls from Trump and lawmakers to extend that deadline. TikTok and ByteDance have sought, at the very least, a delay in the implementation of the law, which they say violates the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment protection against government abridgment of free speech. TikTok says in the court filing last month it estimated one-third of its 170 million American users would stop accessing the platform if the ban lasted a month. So, hey, that's cool. Pro censorship, so long as the rules are made the way I want them. Because, like, if this was really about protecting data, then like we would have a conversation about regulation of these social media companies and their algorithms, right? But that's not what the conversation is about. It's just a straight up TikTok ban. That's what's happening here. It's just being singled out. All right, folks. So it is time for me to get out of here. It is about 7 o'clock, and hopefully this will last so I can sign off. Thank you all for stopping by. Anyone want to watch more Archer this week sometime, let me know. Yeah, join the Discord, folks. And if you want to participate in any of our events, feel free to join the Discord. We do movie events, and we watch Archer and other stuff and things, right? So yeah, join the Discord, folks. Thank you all for stopping by. Appreciate it. If you want to keep up with the channel, also that is a excellent way of keeping up with the channel by joining the Discord. Check out the merch store. Hit !tip if you want to support the channel further. Thank you all for your support. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Also, subscribe to the Substack. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep liking the stream, folks. And join the Discord, folks. All right. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, at around 5 p.m. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat, for modding the chat. I appreciate it. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all. I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Chicken tacos, nice. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.